God dag alle sammen. Good day, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, basically covering an Arctic adventure, Norwegian fjords, Svalbard, and the midnight sun. We have an amazing guest speaker here today. We are going to cover the Svalbard line, Bergen, Longyearbyen, Bergen, and hopefully we threaten you with a good time and you will want to book with us here. So let's go over the agenda quickly. I'm going to introduce our amazing guest speaker. We are going to cover the Hurtigruten difference, and we're going to go over our history as one of the longest operators along the coast of Norway. You have to touch on the seasonality. We'll go over a day-by-day overview of this amazing itinerary, the Svalbard line. We'll touch on some optional excursions, go over some wildlife, discuss life on board, what's included, and then have a quick little Q&A with Terje Leiren. So Terje is a professor emeritus of Scandinavian Studies and History at the University of Washington, Seattle. He is an author of 4 books and more than 40 scholarly articles on Scandinavian history and culture. He has lived in and traveled extensively throughout the Nordic region and loves to share his knowledge of the North with his fellow travelers. Terje, velkommen. Would you like to say a few words?
Tusen hjertelig takk. It's wonderful to join this webinar and be able to talk a little bit about this great Cruise Norway Hurtigruten tour.
Yes, and you are no stranger to Hurtigruten. You have traveled with us many a time, so we are just welcoming you back now, aren't we?
Thank you very much. Probably 15 times I've traveled with Hurtigruten. It's been a wonderful experience. Great cruise line. Super programs.
Yes, yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, Terje has sailed with us more than I have sailed with Hurtigruten, and I am an employee and I grew up in Norway as well. So I think you're in good company. So let's dive right in here. I think I'm going to start with the Hurtigruten difference because you need to understand why Hurtigruten were nothing like other cruise lines, and nor do we want to be. We provide the most authentically Norwegian experience along the coast of Norway. This is Norway by the Norwegians. We have over 130 years of reliability. We do provide your relaxing haven at sea. Our ships are designed for Norway. We are going to entertain you with our deep knowledge and expertise, as is Terje, and you are going to taste the coast of Norway. So let's dive right in. Why can I say we have over 130 years of reliability? That is because we were founded in 1893. You see, along the Norwegian coast, we have around 1,700 fjords here, and 2/3 of the country is mountainous, and we have over 50,000 islands. So first and foremost, that should tell you we have one of the most stunning coastlines along in the world. But it's also very logistically challenging to navigate, very difficult to get from point A to point B. So back in the 1890s, mail could in fact take weeks, if not months, depending on the time of year, to reach the northern regions. So in 1891, the Norwegian government floated out a contract to all seafarers asking if anyone would be willing to carry mail, navigate the coastline also at night. At the time, that route was not well charted, so predictably, no one took the bait. That is until our founder, Captain Richard Witt, he commandeered the DS Vesterålen, and our very first voyage took place on July 2nd, 1893, and he navigated the route of Trondheim to Hammerfest, making 9 ports of call along the way. And what used to take weeks to months, he achieved over the course of 3 days. Hurtigruten was born here. Hurtigruten quite literally means the fast route. Hurti means fast. Ruten means route. Norwegians can tend to be very literal people. This was the start of a crazy history and a lifeline to the Norwegian coast. No longer were Norwegians isolated. They had freedom of movement. Export was largely born on our ships. The fishing villages in the north finally had a means to export their fish globally. And this route evolved over the next 130 years to what we now know to be the original Coastal Express, operating with 7 ships, 365 days a year, all up and down the Norwegian coast. So when you sail with us in Hurtigruten, don't be surprised if you have Norwegians just flock to the shoreside waving the Norwegian flags. We are a firm part of Norwegian history. To sail with us is to sail through 130 years of history. So we be hjertelig velkommen. You guys are beyond welcome to join us. At Hurtigruten, like other larger ships, we are not the destination. You could fit our entire fleet into one big white ship, much smaller. This is your relaxing haven at sea. This is a quiet, tranquil experience. The stateroom, that is your bedroom. You are not sailing with Hurtigruten to stay in your stateroom. All of our ships have panorama lounges. That is your living room. If you are a husband and you're in the doghouse, you don't behave, we also have a tent by the Coastal Experience team. So, you could do like Paul Saunders did here. This is the panorama lounge. That is your living room once again. A Hurtigruten experience is kind of akin to a cozy, cottagey kind of a vibe. It's not really uncommon to see people knitting, crocheting, building puzzles, maybe playing around a backgammon or cribbage, and also treat the restaurants as your kitchen. There's no dress code on board with us. The scenery here, the show, that is Norway, and you will find that this is one of the most stunning coastlines in the world. Now, we also don't have late night discotheques or casinos. If that is something you're looking for, please do not book Hurtigruten. But how we will entertain you is through deep knowledge and expertise. This is Norway by the Norwegians. You will see the coast of Norway, and you are going to learn about the coast of Norway. And at the end of this, we're going to talk to Terje about some of the topics he will cover. So this is double education. So all of our ships have coastal experience teams. If we pass areas of historical and cultural significance, we're going to invite you out on deck, and we're going to teach you about these places. Lots of history along the coast of Norway. So again, you will see Norway, you will learn about Norway, but you're also going to taste the coast of Norway. This is a culinary cruise through and through. Over 80% of our food is sourced locally from over 50 suppliers. It is very important for us to provide a regenerative experience. So we directly contract with local suppliers. That is short-traveled food, access to some of the freshest ingredients in the industry. And we have an award-winning concept called Norway's Coastal Kitchen. So if you are tuning in and you are a foodie, you are in good company. So we don't have a dress code, but you may not want to bring any tight clothing. We don't need that negativity in our lives. Enjoy the Norwegian cuisine and buckle up. So let's talk about the seasonality. So we are going in July. That is home to the midnight sun above the Arctic Circle. That sun will not set. That means you're going to have a front row seat to the stunning Norwegian coastline 24/7. It's also going to mean that your body will forget to tell you that it is time to go to bed. So you will be in the panorama lounge. I can speak to this personally. You'll think that it's about 8 p.m. and it will be 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And you will also have a struggle with, oh my goodness, I need to go to bed. And also, I can't miss this beautiful scenery. Summer is a beautiful time in Norway. Everything outdoors kicks into overdrive. Wildlife springs into action. Hiking kicks into overdrive. E-biking, kayaking, rib boat safaris. If there is an opportunity to be outdoors, we take it. In the vein of being the most authentically Norwegian experience, you need to understand that we have a concept called friluftsliv that largely translates to outdoor living. And that means that we love the great outdoors as Norwegians. Any and all chances we get to stay outside, we take it. And if you're following along in the left-hand side, I have included some average temperatures so you can start planning. But you do need to plan for a bit of a swing. With no dress code, you don't have to bring anything fancy, but you should be dressing for the elements and make sure that you bring lots of layers. So we had started about the original Coastal Express with Bergen, Kirkenes, Bergen, that lifeline to the Norwegian coast. That's not what we're here to discuss today. In conjunction with our 130th anniversary in last year, we launched a new/old itinerary, or we revived an old itinerary, I should say. We had the Svalbard line going, connecting mainland Norway with the high Arctic archipelago of Svalbard between 1968 and 1982. So, of course, when we have this big milestone, it's important to celebrate our rich history and past. This itinerary is not government contracted. We are not conducting essential services for the Norwegian coast. So on this itinerary, you're going to have longer ports of call, so longer time in port. It's also more inclusive. You have additional restaurant inclusions here. Alcoholic beverages are included. Double the coastal experience, or twice the coastal experience size on this ship. So it's everything that makes Hurtigruten great, and then more. It's more premium. And if you look at this map, we are going to take you between 400 and 800 miles from the North Pole to the high Arctic archipelago of Svalbard. So generally speaking, we're going to do a little bit of a day-by-day overview. What we are here to talk about today is the 15 days round-trip voyage Bergen, Longyearbyen, Bergen. If you did want to opt for one of the half voyages, however, Cruise Norway is there to assist. But we are going to cover the full itinerary, and that is what Terje will be guiding. So we're going to start in Bergen. This is Norway's second largest city. I always joke, on a good day it rains from top to bottom, and a bad day it rains side to side, but that is only because my soccer team, Rosenborg, is in a feud with Brann, which is their soccer team. It's actually a beautiful city. It's surrounded by fjords. It's a hiker's dream. And even before you set foot on ship, you have a UNESCO World Heritage Site called Bryggen. So, and you can get to these also very popular vista points with the funicular Fløibanen, and you have an impressive fish market. And the pier of Hurtigruten, which is the Hurtigruten terminal, it's not far. It's just about a 5 to 10 minute walk from city center. So we will set sail around 2:30 in the afternoon, and the first port of call will be Åndalsnes. Now remember that word I just dropped, friluftsliv. That is the Norwegian love for outdoor life. We love to be in harmony with nature without destroying or disturbing it. So we're going to be here from the morning through the early afternoon, and if you're following along, you'll see the optional excursions as well as where Åndalsnes is on the map. Let me pause here to just remind you, why do you come to Norway? You come because we have amazing fjords. You come because we have these super high mountains, and it's just one of the most beautiful scenic areas. We're taking off 2 fjords on our way into Åndalsnes, and it's a small village with just 2,000 people. So we are going to sail through the Isfjord and the Romsdalsfjord as we get into Åndalsnes. You'll have the opportunity to participate in a town walk here, or go on an excursion, mountain peaks and fjords, a scenic motor coach tour, or maybe you want to try stand-up paddleboarding. So that's going to be the main port of call. And again, you do have ample time. You can participate in an excursion or just wander around on your own accord. Another beautiful element of Hurtigruten is that we will take you to places where others just simply won't go. And one of those places would be the wonderfully wonky archipelago of Træna. It sits along the Helgeland coast at the edge of the Arctic Circle. You can actually see it on the original Coastal Express as you cross the Arctic Circle. It's made up of around 500 islands, and only 4 are inhabited. But what is wonky about this is that it sits 33 nautical miles offshore. It's one of the smallest and oldest fishing villages in Norway. They just have about 500 inhabitants. So once again, you're getting a front row seat to the authentic Norway. There is an optional excursion here, the Arctic dip, sauna, and swim. We do love cold water, particularly around the Arctic Circle. I won't give away too much, but we do recommend a good polar plunge or 2. So we will be here in the afternoon from around 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., and you can participate in one of the excursions, or you can go explore on your own. If you're tuning in and Norway's on your bucket list, I can almost guarantee that you have looked up Google image Norway, and you have probably seen an image of Reina. So this is one of the oldest fishing villages in Norway. It has established in 1743. It's one of the most photographed landscapes in all of Norway. You'll find the rorbuer, which is the old red painted fishing huts here, beneath, of course, these sharp mountain ranges reflected in the waters below. You can explore the Reina and Lofoten scenery here, or perhaps consider going kayaking. And once again, we have 6 hours. You have ample time to explore in Reina. And then we are going to go to the Paris of the North / gateway to the Arctic. And here we actually have an included excursion, which is Tromsø on foot, the city and its polar history. And as Terje has sailed with us 15 plus times, I think he has a few things he would like to say about Tromsø. Terje.
I love this city, and I know that the travelers will enjoy the excursion, discovering Tromsø by foot. It's a city that really was the taking off spot for the polar explorations in the late 19th, early 20th century. Fridtjof Nansen and Roald Amundsen prominently stayed here. It's a city that is not only sort of connected with the Arctic, but it's also connected with the southern part of Norway and Europe, for that matter. And it's here where the Norwegian government stayed for several weeks in 1940 as they were escaping from the Nazi occupation, and just prior to going into exile in London. So the city has a fantastically rich history, from the polar explorers to the modern country. It's a really special place, and the architecture, as you see with the in the photograph of the Arctic Cathedral, is one of the outstanding architectural features in the city.
Fantastic. Yes, I think yes, I should have queued you on more of these ports because you actually tell the story better than I do. But I love Tromsø, and then the other great element too is that when we dock, our ships are small enough to dock very close to city center as well. It is very walkable, and you do have ample time. So you're here from 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. So you can do as much or as little as you like. But the journey must continue north. Now we are in Honningsvåg, and that is largely known to be the jump off point for the North Cape, commonly referred to as the northernmost point of mainland Europe. But I do think that that might be a slight fib. There could be one or two ports or areas that are slightly further north than the North Cape. However, none that are as impressive as the North Cape. Teddy, have you been to the North Cape? Surely.
Oh yes, oh yes. The northernmost point is a little peninsula that you can see from the plateau, and it's a mile, maybe if that, half a mile further north. It's the real spectacular aspect of this is that there's nothing between the North Cape and the North Pole, except Svalbard, where we'll be heading.
Exactly. So this is also great for birders. You have puffins. Oh my goodness, what are the other birds? Do we know this off the top of our head? If not, then this is definitely a good itinerary for birders. There is a bird watching safari in the North Cape. So you can do the North Cape in several different ways. You can do a standalone North Cape and King Crab. If you are an adrenaline junkie, why not go four-wheeling to the North Cape or take a bird watching safari and the North Cape? Or if you just want to do a king crab experience, there's loads of king crab in the region here. You can do a rib boat safari with king crab experience as well. So it really doesn't feel like you can get much further north. I always think Kate Winslet from the movie Titanic, but without the negative connotations, and you're on top of the world. But then we're going to ShamWow you and we're going to say, but wait, there's more. We are going further north. So we are indeed heading to the high Arctic archipelago of Svalbard. And on the way, we will sail past Bjørnøya. So this will be a sea day. You can expect enhanced lectures on this day, but you also want to bring your binoculars and you want to be on the lookout for little ox puffins, black-legged kittiwakes, northern fulmars flying over these dramatic cliff tops and steep slopes. There's also a few researchers that reside on Bjørnøya. So I'm talking a population in the tens. So we will definitely do a drive-by. We might bust out the Norwegian flags and we might greet these researchers along the way. When we reach the high Arctic, it won't be before we do scenic cruising down a fjord called the Billefjord, and we're going to showcase the glacier, the Nordenskjoldsbreen. So say that 5 times fast. So we will do scenic cruising in the morning, and we will arrive in Longyearbyen around 1 in the afternoon. This does mark the halfway point for the Svalbard line. There are 3 ways to explore. You can do Bergen, Longyearbyen, Longyearbyen, Ny-Ålesund, Bergen, or Bergen, Longyearbyen, Ny-Ålesund, Bergen. So you have another included activity here, and that is the Svalbard Wilderness and History Experience. And I cannot say enough good things about Longyearbyen. It is just wonderfully and wildly interesting. So former coal miner towns here, largely expats from over 50 different nations reside here. And this is where we're ticking off every bucket list. It is the northernmost post office in Ny-Ålesund, which is the next slide, but northernmost settlement north of 1,000 inhabitants. This is home to the northernmost brewery. This is also home to your Armageddon plant, which is the global seed vault. There is a seed vault here guarding millions of seed just built right into the Arctic tundra. So this is definitely one of those awe-inspiring ports that you just don't see in your regular day-to-day life. And that is what we want to showcase with this experience as well. Also, you're going to find little Svalbard reindeer just walking around, just minding their own business, grazing. So don't mind them. But it is really cool. I love talking to the locals here. I don't even know what language to start in. It's not even Norwegian. So you usually just start in English. We do have a Hurtigruten Svalbard subsidiary up here. So we do run 3 hotels in this region. And we did have our first expedition to Svalbard in 1896. So Hurtigruten is no stranger to Svalbard. Terje, before I move on, did you have anything to add to this port?
I think in addition to this spectacular scenery and the bucket list aspects of Svalbard, is that it is one of the most interesting places with respect to the socio-political aspects of the Arctic. The treaty in the 1920s that allowed access to the minerals and on Svalbard from any country that signed the treaty. And so there's been a Russian presence there almost from the beginning, and especially during the Cold War, a kind of a heated Soviet West experience. So it's a unique place geopolitically as well as environmentally.
Absolutely. Yes. So this is one of the highlights. And then again, though, we are going to set our sights and you must wake up early because on the way into Ny-Ålesund, you will sail down the Kongsfjord and you will also have some glaciers, productive glaciers, as you sail into Ny-Ålesund. Also, the tiniest of tiny, this is a research station, became host to lots of scientific stations from the mid 20th century onwards. So during the summer, there's over 100 researchers here, but during the winter, it might be fewer than 20, I would say. You will notice that we will cut the Wi-Fi. We're going to cut all the Bluetooth. If you have the Oura Ring, the watches, smart watches, cell phones, they're going to ask you to turn everything off because this area now is largely used to conduct glacial and climate research. And we don't want to disturb any of their very sensitive equipment. And you will have the coastal experience team posted all around Ny-Ålesund here, and you'll have about 4 hours to explore. Fun fact, nobody here locks their doors because polar bears tend to shy away from inhabited areas. But like I said, the population here can be from the tens to the hundreds, so it's not unheard of. So they don't lock the doors because you never know when you might need to make a surprise visit at your neighbor's house, essentially. So this was a highlight for me personally. I've been to Ny-Ålesund a couple of times now. I did sail on the Svalbard line earlier this year, and it was just just incredibly scenic walking around, and you kind of just explore on your own. There's really no optional excursions here because you, again, have just a bunch of research and climate research going on in this region. So that is also the turnaround point, and that is about as far north as we're going to go. That's just shy of 79 degrees north. Pretty impressive. We will set our sights southbound again. We're heading back to mainland Norway. Once again, you can expect enhanced onboard activities, rest up, relax, enjoy what Hurtigruten has to offer, eat some good meals, and we are going to call upon Senja. And this is ranked to be one of the top 10 most beautiful islands in the world. Senja is also referred to by Norwegians as mini Norway or little Norway because it does boast characteristics that you typically tend to find all up and down the coast of Norway, but concentrated on this island. And it's also rich in wildlife. So here you'll have some optional excursion, do a scenic route. You can go do the golden hour hike. Again, we love hikes. You can do an e-bike tour, a wildlife safari, or maybe a fjord adventure by Rib. We are actually going to make a quick stop in Tromsø. So there's one element of this itinerary where we will drop a bit of cargo here and there, but this isn't something that you'll notice. The highlight will actually be in Senja. So we will be there basically from late or early to mid-afternoon until midnight. And you're going to find we're still above the Arctic Circle, so that sun will not set. So I'm very excited about Senja. It is incredibly beautiful. And again, we do love to showcase the true and authentic Norway. We will continue on to Stokmarknes and Svalbard. So we will have, there's one day where we will have two ports of call, and Stokmarknes is actually where it all began all those years ago. And you'll notice that I have a second video of my visit here to the Hurtigruten Museum. This was an absolute highlight of my journey. It was incredibly impactful to walk through 131 years of history, learn about how our entire fleet was decimated during World War II, 700 lives lost, learning about the iterations of the Hurtigruten Coastal Express over the years. And I will clearly never work on ship, clearly, as you can see in that video. But this is a very important part of the Hurtigruten experience. Terje, actually, I know I was going to kind of cue you for Svalbard, but I'm very interested. I know you know a lot about World War II, so I am interested to hear your take on the museum as well.
I think the museum is fascinating, and especially since they encased it with that the sort of building around it, and
Ship
they've
in a
given it
bottle.
a whole new sort of museum look. But it's you walk through the ship itself, and you're back 70 years to the 1950s and 60s, and you see how different it is to travel today, and the importance of this north-south route that Hurtigruten has maintained for 130 years is really made living and impressed on visitors. So it's a really unique museum that gives one the whole reason for the Hurtigruten's existence and adds this benefit to this particular tour.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. And in that video, we actually met some of the founders of the museum and the ones that were integral in building, because I do have images of the ship before it was encased. So this is we'll be here for about 2 hours, and I promise you, when you dock in port, you can see the museum. It's about a 50-meter walk. So you will be there, even though you're only in port for 2 hours, you do have time to explore. And then we carry on to the beating heart of the Lofoten archipelago. Once again, you do have an included excursion on this group here for the round trip voyage, which is Lofoten Scenery and Henningsvær. Again, I want to turn the floor over to Terje because you have a personal connection to the Lofoten archipelago, and I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, Svolvær and Henningsvær are two of the most interesting, fascinating fishing villages anywhere, and certainly in Lofoten. Rhine perhaps has more spectacular scenery with the Alp-like mountains sort of looming over it. But in Svolvær, which is is the capital, if you will, of the Lofoten chain, Henningsvær is the artistic center. It's where there are museums, art museums that present some of the most talented artists that Lofoten has produced. Just walking around the little village is itself a real emotional kind of experience. Svolvær itself, too, has a fascinating history. And here World War II played a significant part. It was the very first commando raid of Norway during the war by British and Norwegian soldiers. Took place here in March 1941, and it was the raid on Svolvær that really set off the warnings in Germany about building the Atlantic Wall and making Norway the one place that actually Hitler believed the invasion, which came in Normandy, would perhaps come through the north. And he fortified this area to the point where that is the Norwegian occupied Norway, with 400,000 soldiers, many of whom remained there for fear of an invasion during the Normandy invasion, and probably helped a great deal in keeping the German soldiers away from the battlefront where the Allies could succeed in landing. But Svolvær too is this. If you walk around on your own, go up to the church, and up on the hill there's an incredible art installation that is worth seeing. It's a kind of a solar light panels and reflective mirrors. It's a really impressive art installation. And it's one of the many along the Lofoten archipelago that we can experience if you travel through Lofoten. My favorite one is a cabinet out in the middle of nowhere that sits on the edge of the fjord, and the locals have referred to it as Ordfører's douchekabinet, the shower for the mayor.
Yes.
A remarkable set of artistic installations, but this is really a major art center for the northern Norway.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Well, can I go on your journey? Because as a local Norwegian, I'm from Trøndelag, a little further south, so I haven't spent a lot of time in Lofoten, but you do have 4 hours here, so you should have ample time. And once again, we are docked right there in city center, so it is quite walkable as well. One of my favorite places is Brønnøysund. This marks the halfway point between equal parts north, equal parts south, but this is where troll lore really kicks in as well. So there's lots of troll installations here. This is Torghatten Mountain, rumored to have been formed when Hestemannen, a troll, was jilted in love, shot an arrow after Lekamøya, and the king of Mount Sumna threw his hat in the path of the arrow in an effort to save the girl. Trolls were notoriously daft, however, and the sun rose, and rumor has it they all turned to stone. So you will see mountains all up and down the Norwegian coast that are rumored to be former trolls. What has happened now with Torghatten Mountain is that you have this gigantic hole in the middle of the mountain. It's actually large enough to accommodate one of our ships. And there is a hike that goes to Torghatten Mountain. So when I was selecting my voyage, it was literally so that I could do this hike, because I've always been intrigued by it. Although also, if troll lore isn't your thing, the other explanation is that this hole was formed during a recent ice age. But that is a highlight. If you are in reasonably good shape, I would recommend considering the mountain hike or learning about the legends of Torghatten and Brønnøysund by bus. And we also have Sea Adventures by Rib in this region. But we'll be here for about 4 hours. And they have done incredible construction on, they have built an entire staircase out of the stone here. It is immaculate. Then you go through the hole and you hike down the other side. So this is a culinary cruise, wonderful opportunity to offset that caloric intake, get your little glute workout in on your way through Hurtigruten hike. But this was exactly one of the highlights of my particular voyage. But the journey must consider south. You are, or it must continue on further south here. We are now below the Arctic Circle. The sun might set for an hour or so, but it will be 24-hour daylight. We're also going to call upon Ålesund. So day 14, we have 2 stops as well. Ålesund, we're just here for a couple of hours, and this is known for its Art Nouveau architecture. Terje, I'm actually going to ninja tag you in again. I know you're sitting on some facts on Art Nouveau and Ålesund. I know you have them. So I'm going to let you tell the story.
Well, it's in 1904, Ålesund, the center of the city, much of the city, was destroyed by a fire, an incredible fire and windstorm in January 1904. And it happened to be in the 1890s and the early part of the 20th century, a popular place for tourists. And one tourist in particular, by the name of Wilhelm II, the Emperor of Germany, was fascinated and loved the fjords around Ålesund. And when the city was burned, he offered to send his engineers and architects back up to Norway to help rebuild. And of course, the dominant architectural style in the early 19th century was Jugendstil, or the Art Nouveau style of architecture and art. And the city is rebuilt in the matter of several years in this Jugendstil style. And it is absolutely beautiful. There are other Jugendstil cities in Europe. Riga is one particularly, but there are many others. But there's really none that incorporate this spectacular type of architecture as well as Ålesund does. And just to walk around the city and see this architecture is a real experience for the senses and the mind. It's also a major jumping off point for the Shetland bus in World War II, in the illegal boat traffic between Norway, underground Norway, and the British Isles, where young Norwegians would escape to go to England to hope to fight the invasion. So it's and Ålesund celebrates that history as well. And when one is walking around Ålesund, you may well encounter in the courtyard of the city hall, which is the tallest building in the city, and easily identified. You can focus in on it from the harbor and take a walk over. There's a monument to the saboteurs, the Telemark saboteurs, who blew up the heavy water factory in 1943 during the war. The most successful, incredible sabotage act in all of World War II.
Wow, oh my goodness, you guys, you must book and travel with Terje. He has forgotten more about Norway than I know. This is fantastic. Oh my goodness. We're only going to be here for 2 hours though, because we have to sail down the Jørenfjord. And you might recognize this video. I did play it right at the beginning. This was actually filmed in May of 24. I'm actually in the panorama lounge there, waving frantically at that drone flying by. So technically you are in the presence of a movie star, but the highlight here is the Jørenfjord, which is a jump-off fjord from Ålesund, as is the Geirangerfjord. So Ålesund's also a jump-off port for these impressive fjords. And while not UNESCO listed, it is no less impressive. And you would have an opportunity to visit the small village of Sæbø here. So we would deploy the tenders, and you could take a short little trip ashore and go explore that Norwegian village life. But this is another highlight, incredibly stunning, and definitely definitely a big draw of Norway. I mean, that image, the still right there, fjords, mountains, stunning. So find me a more stunning coastline in the world. I think you will have a challenge with that. That is the last port, and we find ourselves back in Bergen. So once again, we will be here at 7 o'clock in the morning, and of course, ample opportunity to extend here. That is Bergen again, the the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Terje, you also said I didn't let you chime in on Bergen, but you live in Bergen part time. So why don't you say a few words about your experience in Bergen here?
Well, I've had a lot of experiences in Bergen. It's a beautiful city. As Norway's second city, it has all the emotional pushes and pulls of being number two to Oslo, a little bit like Trondheim, I think, has to the other two.
Yeah.
But as a city to visit, it has a kind of you're back into urban setting when you come back to Bergen, and of course there'll be visits up to the funicular on Mount Fløyen. I know the Cruise Norway tour ends up there with, I believe, but spending time in the city. It's city, Bergen is also a very significant center again for contemporary Norwegian history and World War II history. So anybody who's interested in that, we'll certainly be talking a good deal about the role that Bergen plays. It's a city that has a strong German history with the Hanseatic League. These buildings that you see in the slide to the left were built in 1703 after the Bergen was burned down, but they were built precisely like the earlier buildings that stood there as early as the 15th century. So it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's really a special place to visit. There's an active urban life going on around it. You see the seating, the chairs in front of the buildings. In the summertime, this is just filled with people enjoying the weather and the ambiance of the city.
Yeah, amazing. All right. Well, that brings us to optional excursions. So there are 3 included excursions with your tour with Cruise Norway here. There will be several other optional excursions. I'll show some slides here. I think it's important to make sure when you're talking to Cruise Norway about these excursions, look at the levels, because level 1, suitable for most guests. Level 4 can be challenging. Maybe that is e-biking, maybe that is doing the Hurtigruten mountain hike or what have you. So just make sure you are paying attention to the levels of those excursions. And I promise you, you have so much know-how with Cruise Norway. We are a family with Cruise Norway, one of our longest running partners. So they have all sailed with us. They've all met, most of whom have worked with us before. So you are in good hands. Ask them all the questions. As we discussed, paddleboarding would be a good excursion that you could consider. Ribboat Sea Eagle Safari in Lofoten. Perhaps consider a fishing excursion, kayaking excursion, hiking excursion. So there's the ones that are pre-bookable, but if the weather is favorable, then the coastal experience team, maybe they hail from a certain port, they might invite you out to do a hike on their end, learn about the Vikings, and as I mentioned again, maybe you want a quad bike to the North Cape, or there's dog sledding on wheels in the Longyearbyen region as well. So I just quickly, before we go to the Q&A here, I did want to touch on wildlife, particularly in the Svalbard archipelago. So you will find the Svalbard reindeer, which I alluded to. They might just be walking around. They're right alongside the road. They are the smallest subspecies of reindeer. They have adapted to the harsh Arctic climate of Svalbard. They have the short legs and the compact body, which helps them conserve heat in the extreme cold in winter. They do have a unique diet. They feed mainly on moss, lichens, fungi due to the lack of trees and other vegetation in Svalbard. You are squarely in the world of Arctic tundra up here. Their coat changes color seasonally, so dark fur in the summer and lighter in the winter, so that they can blend with the environment. And they're relatively tame and curious, so they often will approach without fear. We do ask, please don't approach the reindeer on your accord, but we can't really always expect that same boundary on their end, because they might indeed approach you. And the reindeer young, they look like baby goats, as I learned. And they're also great swimmers, which I've also learned. Arctic foxes, you might be lucky enough to glimpse. They have the warmest fur coats of any mammal. Of course, they live in the high Arctic. They also change color for camouflage. They are brownish gray in summer and white in winter. Incredibly agile hunters. They leap and pounce on prey like lemmings and birds in the snow. They're known for their intelligence, and they use their keen sense of smell to sniff out the buried food under the snow. They are well adapted to the extreme cold with that thick fur. It even covers their footpads to provide insulation, and they are monogamous. So they often mate for life, and they raise their pups cooperatively. So I really enjoyed that little tidbit, but they do raise their young together in underground dens. When we were in Longyearbyen, right outside of the airport, we landed. Loads of walrus right there. Once again, can't really dictate where they go. They can have males weighing up to around 3,300 pounds, and females would be smaller. They do have these distinctive tusks that you'll see. They can grow up to 1 meter in length. They're used for defense, breaking ice, and they haul their massive bodies out of the water onto the ice floes. They're highly social animals. They often gather in large herds, and they are excellent swimmers, and they can dive to depths of about 80 meters. Just in case you guys ever have a trivia night, it's always nice to know these things. Um, Puffins is also another bird that you'll see, as well as Arctic terns. Arctic terns actually migrate all the way from Antarctica to Svalbard. So make sure you have a rock. If you are near their nest, the Arctic terns might dive bomb you. So just fun fact there. But the puffins in Svalbard are known as Atlantic puffins, or the sea parrots, due to their colorful beaks that change color with seasons. One of the fun facts that I found particularly interesting here is that they can also dive and plunge to underwater depths of around 60 meters or more in search of fish, which is their primary diet. They're skilled flyers. Their wings adapt for underwater propulsion, and they can flap their wings up to 400 times per minute. I had so much fun researching puffins. Whales, always be on the lookout for whales. You might be able to see humpback whales, the elusive blue whale, perhaps the playful minke whale, and we have also seen quite a few belugas in the region, depending on the time of year. They will, of course, migrate to the Svalbard region to feed in the nutrient-rich Arctic waters. They do take advantage of the seasonal abundance of fish and krill. Conversely, you'll find them in Antarctica for the austral summer. So you'll find that humpbacks, they might breach, and the strongest muscle on a whale is the caudal peduncle. It is the muscle right before the fluke, just in case you need to know that. It's what allows them to do up, down, and breach. The blue whales, they are distinguished by their long streamlined bodies and blue-gray coloration. We don't see too many of those, but minke whales will be smaller and more common in the area, often seen feeding near the surface. So they're known for their speed and agility in the water as well. Seals, quite abundant in the region. So you might see some ring seals, bearded seals, and harp seals. Ring seals are the smallest and most common seals in Svalbard, so you might see them resting on ice floes or diving under the sea ice. Bearded seals are known for their distinctive long whiskers, which they use to detect prey in the dark Arctic waters. And harp seals visit the shores during the spring, where they give birth to their pups on pack ice before migrating southward. So the harp seals, maybe they'll be more on the East Coast where there's more ice flows. I would not advertise this tour for polar bears. It is illegal illegal to seek out polar bears in their natural habitat. So they don't often come close to Longyearbyen or Ny-Ålesund. However, it is a possibility. There are rumored to be more polar bears than there are people in the Svalbard archipelago at large. So we had a September sailing. They did see one on the southbound leg in September. So they are roaming around there. That is the king of the north. Okay, we're nearing the end here. Let's talk about your home away from home or your base camp at sea. So you will be sailing on the MS Trollfjord once again. This is your home away from home. No dress code. You are dressing how you would dress at a cozy cottage getaway. How we are going to entertain you is through education, both from our coastal experience team and Terje. I think you know by now, he is going to put on a good show for you. We have saunas with floor to ceiling windows, fitness centers, gift shops, libraries, loads of observation deck space. You will find that you just leisurely sit out here and watch the landscape glide by, same as in the panorama lounge. It's not uncommon. You will be mesmerized by this coastline and you will melt into the Norwegian way of life, which really has very little stress. Lots of differing cabin types. And when you book the round trip voyage, you will also get shipboard credit with Cruise Norway. So if you book a polar inside cabin, this is just a quick little walkthrough here, you'll get 2,000 kroner shipboard credit on the round trip voyages. So this is an interior cabin, as mentioned. No window, and 2,000 Norwegian kroner. It's about $200 per person, give or take. So you can apply this towards any onboard purchase. Similarly, you can do a polar outside. This is an ocean view cabin. You can have separate beds or a queen bed. Just make sure you are communicating that to Cruise Norway at the time of booking. This cabin category will be accompanied by 3,000 kroner shipboard credit, or around $300. You can also opt for one of the Arctic Superior staterooms on the MS Trollfjord. These are both on deck 4 as well as deck 7 and 8. I usually stay on deck 7. Very comfortable cabins, ample storage for your luggage and such. And this stateroom type will be accompanied by 3,500 Norwegian kroner shipboard credit per person, or around $350. If you wanted to upgrade to a suite, that is on request only with Cruise Norway. So we do have some suites that have a private balcony. We also have suites with floor to ceiling bay windows. These will have a larger footprint as well. So if having more space in a larger footprint is important to you, then talk to Cruise Norway and they can upgrade you into a suite. Let's talk about the restaurants as well, because this is absolutely a culinary voyage and your main dining will be flora. So the format here will be buffet breakfast, buffet lunch, generally speaking, a seated a la carte dinner. We'll have a meat base, a fish base, and a plant-based option. Be prepared for culinary storytelling on this voyage. So in this main restaurant, it is in your menu. So every day, make sure you are reading the menu, because you are going to learn about our many suppliers, and we do change the menu according to where we are along the Norwegian coast. You have Brasserie Arran. This is an all-day dining, and Brasserie Arran is the restaurant and our way of showing our respect and gratitude to the Sami people and everything they've done for Norway. Arran is actually a northern Sami word for the fire at the heart of a lavo, which is the temporary dwelling used by Sami for thousands of years. This is a place used for people to gather and share stories. That's exactly what we hope you'll do here. Here you can dine on traditional dishes with a modern twist, such as Sami reindeers do, sliced smoked reindeer meat, pickled herring and rye bread with a cured egg. You can have crab cakes. You can have pepper steak with béarnaise sauce, a big thing in Norway, burgers. This is my favorite restaurant. And here you have the culinary storytelling. They will explain all of the meals to you. They will tell you where we got the ingredients from and how they are prepared. The culinary star, oh, I should mention Flora and Arran are included for all guests. And the culinary star of the MS Trollfjord is Røst. That is inspired by the ancient fish bank of Røst. Our fine dining, it pays tribute to the produce that did help establish Norway, which is fish. So, alongside the stockfish that Norway's economy and heritage was built on, your dishes could include salmon or reindeer, as well as some unexpected ingredients such as seaweed, kelp, Arctic pearls, and sea urchins. Our resident sommeliers, they are also on hand to help you pair each dish with the perfect wine. If you book a suite, this is included, but you can also upgrade for an additional charge if you are in a non-suite. Finally, your living room has a bar in it, so nobody's mad at that. This is the 1893 bar. Nordic cocktails served to perfection, fantastic, unique signature cocktails, also reflecting the culture and heritage of the Arctic coastline. For example, in the restaurant of Rust, maybe you saw that there was a clip of a bottle called Havets Bobler. That is the bubbles of the sea. We age our sparkling wine underwater in undisclosed fjords for 6 months to a year on end. It provides the perfect maturation process for this wine. Undisclosed because Norwegians are known to have a drink or two, and we might get up to no good if we knew where those crates were. But we bring up thousands of bottles of these bubbles of the sea every single year. We also have breweries that brew IPAs only for Hurtigruten and distilleries that make premium akvavit only for Hurtigruten, as well as Arctic gin only for Hurtigruten. So once again, you are seeing the coast, learning about the coast, you're tasting the coast, not only in your food, but in your beverages as well. So you'll have a 3-person bartender team here, and you'll even have a brown cheese infused cocktail that you can order here. So let's just quickly discuss what's included, and we're going to shift our focus to a quick Q&A with Terje. So when you book the round trip voyage, you will have your choice of cabin category and cabin number. The ship has Starlink Wi-Fi, so you can easily check emails and social media. I wouldn't stream your Netflix show, maybe download the episodes before you come, but you will have ample connection here. Lunch or breakfast is included with full board in Flora, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then anywhere from 11 onwards in Arran, all-day dining there. You'll have unlimited select tea and coffee, and alcoholic beverages are included from lunch onwards. 6-person coastal experience team will have movie nights. We have a pianist playing music in the evenings. And if you book a suite, you will also have your suite type, suite location on the round trip voyages. And you will also have full access to Rust, and you will have access, you will receive a Hurtigruten clothing package. And as we mentioned throughout this presentation, you do also have 3 included excursions when you book this tour with Cruise Norway. So when do you have this QR code here? If you have a handy dandy phone, you can easily scan this QR code. That will take you to the landing page telling you more about how you can book this amazing journey. Before we sign off, I just wanted to ask Terje a couple of questions. The first one being, having covered what we've covered now, and I think I know where you're going with this because you are just a wealth of information. What was it, Terje, that made you choose this particular itinerary?
Well, it's a bucket list itinerary, and to be able to travel it with Hurtigruten, which has this 130-year history of carrying people north and south on the Norwegian coast in ships that go into places where most cruise ships can't go and wouldn't think of trying to go. That this will take you into many of these places. In addition to being able to experience and meet Norwegians and indeed travelers from around the world that are also experiencing this kind of adventure. So it's personal, but it's also sort of something that appeals to me intellectually, culturally, in having my connections with Norway.
Amazing. And then we have discussed that there's a 6-person coastal experience team. So we can expect that this will be action-packed with the lecture program that they will offer, but you are also going to offer your set of lectures. So
Right.
could you quickly, before we sign off here, what topics do you plan to cover in your lectures?
The focus, of course, will be on Norway and what it is, what it represents. We've scheduled 4 lectures, but it can be we can add a 5th if time allows and if the interest is there. But my lectures, I can give you the titles. Maybe that gives better example of it. An introductory essay on Norway as a modern country with a Viking heritage, a kind of an overview of the country as we're visiting it. Something that appeals to me and I think applies greatly to this particular tour is Norway nature and the exploration of the polar regions, the role that Norway's nature plays in the creation of this connection with the Arctic, especially Amundsen and Nansen, and the development of the Norwegian Meteorological Society. The weather forecasting, modern weather forecasting, had its origins in Norway. And it's largely because of the familiarity with the Arctic and the ocean currents, that ocean currents and air currents have a similarity, and hence the beginning of weather forecasting. So we'll talk a little bit about that. National romanticism in the 19th century, the role of nature in the Norwegian experience, and how Norwegians themselves came to see the country, what the country was, and nature defines the country still today. But it was the nature that gave Norway its identity, not only kind of political identity, but its cultural identity. So we'll talk about that in a lecture. I also want to do a talk on Norway and World War II, the experience of Norway after the invasion, and how Norwegians dealt with that and how it affected the various parts of the country as we travel through it. We can talk about that. And of course, the Vikings. If there's an interest in that, I could do a lecture on the world of the Vikings, the tremendous 1,000 years history of Norway, going back then to the Viking Age itself and the Viking sites. Jørenfjord, for example, right at the entrance to Jørenfjord, there is a Jørenvåg that is a place where one of the most significant battles in the Viking Age took place. So there are scattered along the Norwegian coast aspects of its history that can be brought out during the cruise. And no better way to do it than to do it as a part of a cruise from Bergen to Svalbard, back to Bergen with Hurtigruten.
That's amazing. This was beyond helpful and inspiring. I consider myself to be pretty darn savvy on all things Hurtigruten, but I have thoroughly enjoyed learning more. And I can't wait to see how this goes. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested in joining Terje on the Svalbard line, make sure you are scanning that QR code. Reach out to Cruise Norway, our amazing partners, and we hope to have the opportunity to welcome you aboard. So, with that, I think we'll say ha det bra, tusen hjertelig takk, and have a nice
Tusen
day.
takk.
Ha en
Tusen takk,
kjempefin
Linn.
dag. Ingen årsak, tusen takk sjøl, du. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful day.